series, Healing Hands. Today's is called... We're gonna get into the prayer later.
Okay.
Let's just start this. We'll get the prayer, I promise. So, again I said, we're 3 weeks into our series, Healing Hands. And you have to break something like the order of worship, to be healed. But, so it started off with, we believe, so that we can be sent out. Today we have another so that. It starts off with belief, so we can be healed, so that we can be sent out, so that we can become known. Now, not just us, but Jesus. I just basically gave you the whole message in about 30 seconds. Bye, Mark. We'll keep instructing. But I want to address this particular scripture, what does that scripture have to do with any of that? Sometimes in the Bible we run across passages that as soon as we read them, we know exactly what to do with them. Or at least we understand them on the surface. We're like, oh, Sermon on the Mount, we get that. We understand the Ten Commandments, either version. We understand what to do with certain scriptures. But even this whole story in context, we only read the first 2 verses of kind of this story, this little aside. It's like a flashback. The whole story doesn't even really make a whole lot of sense in context, let alone just taking a couple verses. This is the kind of passage in the Bible that is less important because of what it says about itself, but more important about the questions it causes you to ask. And that actually is one of the great purposes of the Bible. It is God's Word, it is transformative, but it's only transformative if we ask questions relative to ourselves about it, or ourselves to God about it. This is one of those passages. So today's message is less about the words in that passage and more about the questions I found myself asking as I came across that passage and as it relates to the arc of our series. We believe so that we are healed, so that we are sent out, so that something becomes known. Hey Lee, can you turn me up just a tad? Alright. Now, we're going to pray. God, remind us that we have no place else to be right now. No worries, no struggles, nothing. All we are required to do in this moment is to be present for you as you are present for us. Amen. Now, I talked about today's about being known, becoming known. Why is that even important? Well, there are a couple reasons why us being known, or what we know about ourselves, is important. It's because, A, if I said last week we were supposed to be sent out, now you can turn it down just a tad. There's like an echo. Or mute the other mics. I said we were going to be sent out. Last week we're sent out. This week, we're talking about being sent out. This week we're talking about being known. Why is that important? It's important to be known because if we're not known, nobody's going to listen to us. As church, they have absolutely no reason to listen to us if they don't know us. We're lucky to have Angela. And I say that because last Tuesday, Angela made the trek from our house to Crickets on Midlothian. Everybody, come on. Nobody knows Crickets. Somebody knows Crickets a little too well. But she walked. And if you know Midlothian, right up there by the highway, there's a sidewalk under there, but there's also a median that goes underneath that. Well, on her way there, she got propositioned by some guy laying under the bridge. So she went into the median, and then she had a guy pull up next to her and offer to give her a ride wherever she was going. Now, Angela wisely declined both. Because why? Because she didn't know those people. If it had been our friend Joe or Elizabeth come up, hey, you want to ride? Absolutely. There's trust there. They earned the right to do that. But some random dude coming up, asking to give her a ride, we would have been finding pieces of her for a long time. It's because we don't know. People have no reason to trust us or to listen to us if they don't know us. And part of that goes right into what I was just saying. It's because we fear what we don't know. We fear what we don't know. If Angela let that stranger help her, it would have been very foolish. It's right to fear. I'm not even saying fear is wrong. Worry, don't worry. But fear is a biological reflex we have to keep us safe. Okay? But we fear what we don't know. And if the community doesn't know us at all, they just know that this building exists, but they don't know us, they have every right to fear what we might do. Especially since there's a lot of negativity surrounding the Christian faith. There is, because there are a lot of bad examples out there. Knowing, though, is more than accumulating facts. Accumulating facts is just like, that's the start of knowing anything. Because facts can be lies. Facts can be skewed. We think, no, it's either true or it's not. It's factual or it's not. That isn't true. If the last couple of years have shown you anything, things can be factually true, but still be completely misleading and dishonest. Just because something is factual doesn't make it honest. Information can be lies. Knowledge, knowing something can give us power. It can give us comfort. But Jesus' power came through submission to God, his submissive relationship to God. So then, if knowledge is power and we want to be like Jesus, that is our claim as Christians, yes? Where's my amen lady?
Amen. Took the week off.
Acceptable. We need to get that on a recording. And then Lee can just be back there and just, amen. We'll get that happening. If we want to be like Jesus, which is our claim as Christians, then our power, through Christ comes through our sacrificial and loving relationships in which we submit to each other, to the needs of each other. Okay? We know things by how we relate to them. I know that that's a chair, not because somebody gave me information about a chair. You could write me an article about a chair, but if I've never literally seen a chair in my whole entire life, it's just conceptual. It means nothing. I don't know what a chair is. I know about what a chair is. But it's not until I see that chair and I sit in it that I understand, that I know what a chair is. We know things by how we relate to them. Same way we are known by how we relate to, how people relate to us, how things relate to us. That is how we are known. Our relationship to things or people is how we are known. So again, somebody could write, this is actually one of the difficulties of doing funerals for people you don't know. I can go sit with a family and talk with them all morning about their loved one. But only they know their loved one. I know about their loved one. See the subtle difference? Knowing is in relationship to something. So then that brings up the question, going back to this. This passage was Herod asking the question about who Jesus is. It started making me ask questions. Now we'll have sermons about who Jesus is. We'll do that. We're not going to do that today. Because that's sort of like the whole purpose of church, to find out who Jesus is and what do we do with that. Today, the question that came up to me was, well, who is Jesus? Who am I? Who am I in light of that? I mean, we have a basic understanding of who we think Jesus is, but then the next question is, well, who am I in light of that? In light of that knowledge, who am I? How am I known? How do I know myself? How do others know me? So how are we personally known? How are we known as church in this community? Who knows us? What does it matter? What happens when we're known? Does it change anything? These are questions that I was immediately confronted with as I started this message. So this sermon today, this message today is about how we know ourselves and how we are known by others. And both viewpoints are centered around our relationship with Jesus. That's key. Because this message easily could have gotten into humanistic self-help kind of thing. But remember, everything I say today, the linchpin, the center of that is Jesus. It all is how we relate to Jesus. As Christians and as church, it is only in relation to Jesus that we can be truly known. And that is for both good and ill. If our relationship to Jesus is healthy and ongoing, then people will notice that. There are people sitting in this room whose relationship with Jesus is healthy and ongoing, and you can tell. You can tell. But if our relationship to Jesus is broken, or opposing even, they will notice that even more. And that is why Christianity has this negative connotation, because people are noticing the bad crap that you see on the news. Or the bad experience of, you go out to a restaurant. This is the worst thing that I've ever seen. I hate it when I see this. Hate is not a strong enough word for what I feel. When I see a group of Christians go out after church, and then one of them's a real pill to the server. Yeah, you don't do that. Your relationship with Jesus is either broken or in opposition to what Christ teaches. And guess what? If they have identified you or your church, they're never coming to that church, let alone may never come to Jesus, because now they've equated Jesus with you. And if you're a pill, that Jesus dude must be okay with having pills in his collection. Okay? So what we say about a relationship, and how it actually plays out are not always the same thing. We can say we're Christians, but unless we're living it, we can say we're Jesus followers, but unless we're living it, it doesn't really matter. Think about any relationship. I can say that I'm married, but if I'm running around on my wife, then my heart and my actions are not in line with what I say. Right? And everyone can see that. In the same way, if we claim to be in a relationship with Jesus, and if we say we are Christians yet we're not honoring that relationship with our hearts and our actions, then we are lying, and the world can see that too. That actually does more damage than not claiming to believe at all. Claiming to believe and acting like a jerk does more damage for the sake of the gospel than just being an atheist. In fact, I've seen more atheists do good who have furthered the kingdom than I've seen Christians do the same thing because of their love for Jesus. That is why how we know ourselves and how the world knows us is important. Put another way, the way we self-identify and the way the world identifies us makes a huge difference in our ability to do anything for the sake of Jesus and the gospel. So, I'm going to suggest the way we can know ourselves that will help the world know us in the appropriate manner. How do you know yourself? You need to, if you're a Christian, you must know yourself as a disciple of Jesus Christ. I don't usually stand up here and give, absolutes. I am not an absolute kind of guy. I will give this absolute. You must be a disciple of Jesus Christ if you want to do this work effectively. And you want to do it for the right reasons. You must be a disciple. But how do we know that we're a disciple of Jesus? How do we know? We can say we are. But is there a metric against which to test that? Well, the simple answer is that if we know that we're disciples, that we will know that we're disciples if we are emulating Jesus or doing what he did. We know we are disciples if we have the same heart of compassion and love that he did. We know that we're his disciples if we know where and when to challenge others so they can keep growing. We know that we are his disciples if we follow in his footsteps. Now, all of that seems kind of general, but those are the questions you ask yourself when you do anything. Does it fit one of those questions? Is it following? It's trite and cliche, but what would Jesus do is important. What would Jesus have done? Or how would he have acted? Because we face a lot of issues Jesus never would have faced in his time. But that doesn't mean we can't compare Jesus' heart to that. What would Jesus do with immigrants, illegal or otherwise? What would he have done with that? How would he have responded to that? How would he have called out his government at the time? Because I don't know if you knew it, but that whole Jesus getting crucified thing had a lot more to do with him calling out the government and the power, this church structure of the time, than it did anything else. So that brings me back around to the question, how do we know if we're disciples of Jesus? How do you know if you have the same heart? How do you know if you're walking in his way? How do you know if you are truly emulating him? Well, you have to get to know him. You have to get to know him. And you don't do that just by hearing. I've said that before. You don't get to know Jesus just by hearing about him. What did I say before? Knowledge is more than gathering information. Fully knowing requires relationship. It requires experience. It requires exposure. It requires an insatiable drive to get as close as you can to the source of your desire. Let that one sit a minute. Insatiable. You cannot get enough of Jesus. But how? And see, I always have questions. Every question brings up another question. Like, how can we know how can we know Jesus in a relational way? Yes, we can come to church on Sunday and listen to preaching for like an hour. Mark actually got up because he knew that was coming. No, we can come and listen to preaching, but that's simply me opening the door for and inviting you in for something deeper. This is like ground level stuff. This isn't the purpose of Christianity. This isn't the reason why you're Christians. You aren't good Christians because you come to church and you listen to me spout off for 40 minutes. Maybe it'll keep getting lower if I keep mentioning a time. No, but you should do that, obviously, because I'm trained to teach about these things. But that is bare minimum. That is ground level. First, if you want to know about Jesus, you need to learn what others have said about him. And that, my friends, means reading your Bible. Oh my goodness. What did he say? Yes. You need to read, I don't care which translation you read. You want to read King James? God bless you. I don't suggest it, but if you want to, fine. I don't care. Any version of the Bible is going to help you out. Reading the Bible, even if you don't understand it all, or most of it, is our primary snapshot of what Jesus was like here on this earth. We only know what Jesus was like because of what people have said. You don't have to believe that everything in there is literally true, but you cannot fully know Jesus without knowing what other people knew of him. You just can't do it. Second, if you want to know Jesus, you need to talk to the dude. You need to talk to Jesus. And that means praying. Read your Bible and pray. Gosh, is this like Church 101? Yes, it is. It means praying. Did you know that you can talk directly to Jesus? Did you know that? You can talk directly to Jesus. You can do it. And guess what? If you shut up for a little while, he'll talk back. There are lots of different understandings of how prayer works and what effect it has on us and the world, but one thing is unquestionable, and that is prayer is our primary way to talk to Jesus, and if we shut up and listen, he can talk back. Third, if we want to know Jesus, we need to make friends with Jesus' friends. That means spending time with other followers in community. That's sort of what we're doing now, but again, ground level. I guarantee, and maybe not here at McDonald's, it's a little different in McDonald's because it seems like everybody knows everybody in McDonald's, whether you want them to or not. They know stuff. But do you know everybody in here? I mean, like, know everybody in here. Or do you know about everybody in here? I'm sure you know something about most of the people in this room. But that's like reading the headline anymore. It's sensationalist usually. You never hear the good bits. And by good bits, I mean you never hear the things that really make them down. You hear like, oh, did you hear she cheated on her husband? Oh, they haven't paid their taxes in 12 years. Why don't they cut their grass? You know? Like, you're known as I'm probably known on my block as a person who doesn't cut their grass. I don't have time. So I'm now paying somebody to do it, which I don't want to do either. But, you know, people would assume some things about me by what they think they know. What they know about me rather than what they know. So we need to spend time in community, in study and in service with other people. We need to learn a lot. We can learn a lot about Jesus by learning from others like us. We can build each other up and hold each other accountable as his original disciples did. Finally, we can learn a lot about Jesus by hanging out with people who are not his followers. I read a quote this week that said, "Do like Jesus did and spend so much time with sinners that it ruins your reputation with religious folks." I have made that my mantra. If you've ever come to karaoke on Friday night, you know that's true. And that's a church or a table full of church folks. Also a table full of sinners. And I love it. It's one of my favorite times of the week. But you need to get out there and have relationships. Part of the reason why we don't have people in the church, or we don't have a lot of new people in the church, is because our circles are limited. Especially the better we think we are, the more limited our circle is. See, our ability to relate to those who are sinners has a lot to do about us and nothing to do about them. If we think we're goody-goody, we can't possibly go to the bar. We can't do it. That's where the bad people go. Well, yeah. But that's where a lot of good be Lutheran here in a minute. We are both saints and sinners. We're both. No matter what you do, we are both. So you need to accept that, get a hold of that for a minute, and then that will allow you to relate to every other saint and every other sinner. We can learn a lot about Jesus, not by being uppity about our Christianity, and that means by being with people who are totally different from us. So, I go back. Are you a disciple of Jesus Christ? Do you truly know him? Are you really in a relationship with him? If we do not know ourselves, if we don't know that about ourselves, then we cannot identify the places where we need to grow. And again, spoiler alert, we all need to grow. I don't care if you're 2 or 92. You can grow. We cannot know ourselves or be known as the church until we truly know Jesus. And they will not know that we are Christians. They will know we are Christians by our love. You know the song, right? But they will know we are followers of Christ by our relationship to him. They will know that we are Christians by our loving relationships with them. They will know because we will know who we are and whose we are. So that was know yourself as a disciple. Second thing is we as church need to be known as agents of hope here at McDonald. This church, I don't care about the other churches. This church needs to be known as, we need to be collectively known. We need to be known as agents of hope in McDonald. I reached out, some of you have seen this because you're on the McDonald Facebook community page. By the way, plug, if you're not on there, you ought to be, and bring the popcorn, it's amazing. But I reached out on that page and I asked the people who were not church members, who didn't come here, to answer a couple of questions. What do you know about Woodland Park United Methodist Church? Do you personally know anyone that attends there? Have you ever been invited to do anything there, whether it was worship service or something else? And if you had to pick one thing that the church is known for, what it would be? And here were some of the very scientific results. First of all, 16 people responded, which was pretty awesome. 13 of them knew something about the church, or at least knew that the church existed. Right? They could say, oh, it's that thing where something, right? 6 people specifically mentioned how warm and nice the people are. So that's, half, a little over half, know you as warm, inviting people. We're really warm today, but warm, inviting people. 5 people mentioned knowing about VBS, either in its current form or in the past, especially in its current form. There were a lot of people actually said their child or children have attended here over the past couple of years, and they really, really like that. Okay, so that's another good thing. 5 people specifically mentioned the church helping McDonald stop saying McDonald's. McDonald residents and taking an active role in the community. Awesome. 6 people said they didn't know anyone who attended here compared to 7 that either said they did or it could be implied that they did based on their responses. 7 people said they had never been invited to anything here. So 7 of the 16 said they had never been invited to anything. 2 people mentioned how nice our lawn looks. 2 people mentioned that. And that was like the only thing they knew. I don't know anything, but you have nice grass. And 4 people shared memories indicating that they had not been here for a few decades. So there were 4 people who said, oh, I remember when the church was blah, blah, blah. And then it was like a great thing, So based on that limited sampling, what do the people not in this church know us for? The good. We're a nice church that cares about our community, and we have a nice lawn. Awesome. We are known for some of the activities we put on.